One of the most controversial measures of 2025 may have decreed the definitive end of epic rain races in Formula One. Four-time world champion Max Verstappen from Red Bull Racing expressed harsh criticism after the Belgian Grand Prix, issuing a warning that should concern any fan of the sport. Are the iconic wet battles at Spa, which have given us some of the most memorable chapters in motorsport history, about to disappear forever? The Dutch driver's statement was clear and alarming. What we witnessed at Spa on Sunday was a true test of endurance for both competitors and spectators alike. When the first drops began to fall on the legendary Belgian track, the race stewards opted for an extremely cautious approach that kept everyone waiting for an interminable 80 minutes. 80 full minutes! To put that length of time into perspective, you could have watched an entire movie while 20 of the most talented drivers on the planet remained confined to the pits, waiting for a green light that seemed to never come. The scenario became even more absurd when the race finally got underway. The competitors completed only 4 laps behind the safety car before being given the green light to start the real battle. However, here comes the element that provoked Verstappen's anger. After only 8 laps of actual racing, the teams were already changing to slick tires, i.e., tires for dry conditions. Only 8 laps. This means that all that theatrical waiting was practically in vain, as the asphalt was already in normal racing conditions. Verstappen was unable to hide his disappointment and was incisive during radio communications. "This is a bit absurd. We should just race a few laps. Overly cautious." The 4-time champion accurately predicted what would happen: more rain approaching and the possibility of a 3-hour delay, and his prediction was confirmed. The race, which was scheduled to start at 3 p.m. local time, did not actually start until 4:20 p.m. An hour and 20 minutes of delay due to a decision that, in the Red Bull driver's view, was completely unnecessary. However, what truly disturbs Verstappen goes far beyond wasting time or having a car setup that is unsuitable for the circumstances at hand. The Dutchman raised an issue that should make us think deeply about the future of Formula One. In his view, we will never again witness the classic rain races that made history. Those legendary battles, with drivers facing the forces of nature and demonstrating their mastery in extreme situations, may be becoming relics of the past. And this is not just a superficial impression. Race direction has taken an increasingly conservative stance after some severe incidents at Spa in recent years. The tragedy that claimed the life of Antoine Hubert and the fatal accident involving Delano Van Hoff remain vivid in everyone's memory. Verstappen acknowledges that these losses may have influenced the steward's ultra-conservative decision, but questions whether this is truly the right direction. The dilemma is that this excessive caution is creating a knock-on effect that compromises the entire strategy of the teams. Drivers such as Verstappen chose specific setups for wet track racing on Saturday, sacrificing performance in qualifying in favor of a car more suited to Sunday's rain. However, when the race actually took place, conditions were already suitable for dry tires, rendering these strategic decisions completely invalid. The situation becomes even more complex when we analyze the championship. Verstappen finished 4th at Spa and is now 81 points behind leader Oscar Piastri of McLaren, who won the race. For a 4-time world champion accustomed to dominance, watching that gap widen due to decisions beyond his control must be immensely frustrating. And here we have an explosive component. An angry Verstappen usually means trouble for everyone else on the track. The most paradoxical thing about this whole situation is that Red Bull is going through one of its worst phases since Verstappen won the title. The car has balance issues that are not easy to solve, as the driver himself acknowledged after the race. When you add controversial decisions by race control to a car that is not at its best, the result is a perfect recipe for frustration. Verstappen knew that 3rd place was the best he could achieve at Spa. But even so, it was clear that the circumstances did not work in his favor. However, the Dutchman's harshest criticism was directed at the drivers who complained about poor visibility. With the experience of 4 world titles under his belt, Verstappen was categorical. It was only for a few laps, and the more you race, the better you get. And if you can't see, you can always slow down until you can see. A response that demonstrates not only his self-confidence, but also his frustration with colleagues who, in his view, are unwilling to take the risks that are part of the essence of Formula One. What is at stake here is not just a race or a specific result. We are debating the very identity of Formula One. Rainy races have always been moments where true talent stood out from the rest. Ayrton Senna in Monaco in 1984, Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone in 2020, Verstappen at Interlagos in 2016. These are moments that define careers and create legends. If we persist on this ultra-conservative path, we will be depriving future generations of witnessing these magical moments. The situation becomes even more disturbing when we consider that drivers such as Lewis Hamilton, now at Ferrari, and Fernando Alonso at Aston Martin are in the final stages of their careers. Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, has always been a virtuoso in wet races. Missing the opportunity to see him battle in adverse conditions because of overly cautious decisions is practically an attack on the sport, and Verstappen himself, who still has so much to contribute to his career, may never again have the chance to showcase all his skill in a classic wet race. The question remains, to what extent should safety limit the spectacle? No one wants to witness serious accidents, let alone tragedies like those that have marked Spa in recent years. But there is a balance that needs to be found. Formula One has always been about drivers pushing boundaries, facing extreme challenges, and demonstrating extraordinary skills. If we eliminate these elements in the name of absolute safety, are we still talking about the same sport? Verstappen made it clear that ultimately, the decision is not his to make. Race control has complete autonomy to determine when a race should or should not take place. But as a 4-time world champion and one of the leading voices on the current grid, his opinion carries weight. And when he says that we will never see classic races in the rain again, that should serve as a wake-up call for everyone involved in the sport. The Belgian Grand Prix may have been just another stop on the calendar, but Verstappen's statements touched on something much deeper. We are witnessing a fundamental shift in the philosophy of Formula One, where caution is overtaking the passion for calculated risk that has always characterized the sport. And if this really is the new norm, we may have to get used to a less exciting, less unpredictable, and consequently less magical spectacle. The question that begs to be asked is it worth preserving a sport if, in the process, we lose its essence? Verstappen clearly believes not, and his frustration echoes the feelings of many fans around the world. It remains to be seen whether Formula One will be able to find the perfect balance between safety and spectacle, or whether we will continue to witness the gradual death of the races that once made our hearts race. What do you think? Leave your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any analysis of what goes on behind the scenes of Formula One.